Okay, shkayach everyone for joining. We are continuing with the Sefer Derech HaShem, and now we are up to part 3, which is a whole new section in the Sefer, which in the classic Feldheim.
Gimel here.
Yeah, we're on page 182. Perek Gimel, Chelek Gimel, Perek Aleph. And this Chelek, this portion of the book, he's advancing now that he's already laid a lot of the foundation, advancing to some more in-depth topics, such as Nefesh HaAdam, the human soul, Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration, Nevuah, prophecy, U'ulos Shelo Kederech HaTeva, things that are done, supernatural actions. So I'm very excited to learn this together with all of you. Okay, so he begins with Perek out with the first Perek Rishon, B'inyan hanefesh u'pe'uloseha, the soul and its pe'ulos is a little bit of a difficult word to translate. Pe'ulos normally means like its actions. Here, the Feldheim translation goes with the word its influence, because as we'll see, the soul doesn't necessarily take action in the sense that we're used to, but rather it has an influence on things, as we will see. Hine, the Ramchal begins as follows. We have already explained in the first part of the book, in Perek Gimel, Inyan ha'adam, the concept and the way of man. Mankind is something that no other creature possesses. Man is made of a combination. Man is made of a combination of two different things, which are very far and very separate from each other. Haguf v'haneshama, the body and the soul. This is kihine yesh ba'adam metzius nefesh k'mo sheyesh l'kol ba'alei hachayim. Man has nefesh, he has a soul in the sense that every living being has. Mishameshes hargasha v'haskala hachakuka b'tiva, which functions in providing natural feelings and intelligence, intellect, which is set into nature. Okay, so now the Ramchal is going to build things up a little bit, and he's starting with this lower level of nefesh, which is not unique to mankind. Every living being has this lower level, and we'll see it's difficult in English to define these things. We don't have good English words for these things. There's something called a nefesh and a neshama. And the nefesh, which he's about to describe, is something that all Balei Chaim have, all living beings have. And the first line that the Ramchal described is that this is the faculty, or this is the power which is responsible for our feelings and for our intellect. Okay, and now we'll continue. Before we continue, I just want to point out one little detail in the language of the Ramchal. He wrote, Kihine yesh ba'adam mitzius nefesh. He's consistently using the language of Adam. He's not yet differentiating between Jews and non-Jews. Here he's talking about all of mankind. All of mankind has what he is calling a neshama, which is something that only mankind has. Other living beings do not have this. But before we get...
Excuse me, Rabbi, I thought Adam is like Adam Kimus Ba'ohel, and Adam is talking about Bnei Israel, and Ha-Adam was all mankind.
That's true in the language of the drasha that Chazal make, that Adam is referring specifically to Klal Yisrael, but in the words of the Ramchal, I believe he specifies, when he's talking about Klal Yisrael specifically, he specifies Klal Yisrael. I don't think that he's borrowing the language of the drasha, that when he says Adam, which in the simple sense is something broad, I don't think he means specifically the Jewish people. But we'll see as things develop. I believe he's going to get into the details of Jews versus non-Jews as well in this description of the neshama. Okay, so let's continue. So again, what's specific to mankind is neshama, and then there's something in between guf and neshama called nefesh, and that is something that all balei chaim, all living beings have. The nefesh, which all balei chaim have, is something dak ma'od, something very ethereal, or something, maybe another word we can use, something very, very subtle. Nimshach uva betoch hazera achrei hikolto. It's drawn and it comes with the zera, with the seed after conception. And then it continues and it goes. It builds the body according to whatever is appropriate for whatever that species may be. So he's describing, to me, this sounds like the life force, what we might call the life force. That's what it sounds like he's referring to as the nefesh, which all living beings have in common. And that comes at the time of conception, and that is responsible for the development and the growth of the fetus. It continues to spread as the creature, we're not even talking specifically about people yet, as the creature grows. In that nefesh, in that they use in this translation animal soul. I'm not crazy about that translation, but I don't have a good English word for it. In that nefesh, talui hahergesh, that's where feelings come from. V'chein haskala, and also the intellect, haru'ui l'minahu, whatever is befitting for that specific species. As we know, there's a very broad spectrum of intelligence throughout the animal kingdom. V'askalas b'nei ha'adam nivdelas me'askalas kulam hevdo gadol. And the intellect of mankind is separate from the intellect of the rest of the animal kingdom very significantly. It's a very great divide. V'ulam kol ze nasa b'nefesh hazos. This is all being done through this nefesh, this animal soul. Kvi chuka hativi, according to its nature. And according to the preparation of the kalim, the tools, the instruments that it uses, that serves it. In each species according to what it is. In the human, in the case of mankind, the nefesh is responsible for a number of faculties and strengths. Kigon hadimyon, for example, imagination. Imagination is something that's beyond the physical body, right? It's not one of my muscles, but it's not quite something that the neshama, something that the spiritual element is doing. It's somewhere in between. It's this nefesh, which all living beings have in common. So in the case of man, that is what is responsible for imagination. V'hazikaron, memory. Now this is interesting to me because I would think that memory might be something that the physical body is responsible for, something that the brain is capable of. Where to draw the line between the faculties of the brain versus this nefesh, I think will be a challenge, as we'll see. So number one, he lists the following: dimyon, imagination; zikaron, memory; haseichel, the intellect. Commonly, the word seichel is used to mean like common sense, that type of idea, not necessarily book smarts. The haratzon, a desire, a drive. Kulam kohos banefesh. These are all strengths of the nefesh, of the soul. And again, we're talking now about this animal soul, for lack of better words. Mugbalim bigvulim yaduim. They are, all these faculties are contained, each one has its own particular domain, upoalim b'drachim yuchadim, and its own unique function. So the nefesh has a number of different kochos, a number of different strengths, a number of different abilities and functions that it provides for man. And each of those have their own domain and unique functions. Okay, so now let's dig a little bit deeper, and now let's move on to the neshama. So now we're up to Os Beis, and in the classic Feldheim translation, page 184, and in the translation 185. Amnam milvad kol zeh. Aside from all of this, nimsa od ba'adam mitzius nafshi nivdal ve'elyon ma'od. There exists another element within man, another existence which is nafshi, which is of the soul. Nivdal, it is separated. The elyon ma'od, very elevated. This is very high. The first thing we spoke about is not as high as what we're about to discuss now. Vena tachlis b'biyaso ba'adam, its purpose, this second soul, its purpose in being brought to man, is elo lekashro b'sharashim elyonim. It is to connect man to those higher roots. So now the Ramchal is referencing an idea that we learned earlier in the Sefer, that there's a spiritual hierarchy that HaShem has put in place with which he uses to control the world. And there's something that the Ramchal refers to as the Sharashim Elyonim, literally the high roots, which are the roots, the spiritual roots. And in the spiritual realm, there are roots and there are branches, and they work their way down into the physical realm, as we've mentioned. And kind of the decree comes from HaShem, and then it descends through this spiritual hierarchy that he has created and works its way all the way down to our physical world. So the Ramchal here writes that the function of the neshama, the reason why we need a soul, something that the second soul, the higher level soul that we're discussing, what that provides for man is that it connects him to these sharashim elyonim, to these high roots, these spiritual roots. Sheyeshel kasher bam, that he then has a way to be tied to them. Those ma'asav molidim toldosam b'kochos elyonim b'koach gadol. And this enables man that his actions have results. They have an influence in these kochos elyonim, in these higher spiritual roots, b'koach gadol, with tremendous strength. So it affords for us, our neshama, our soul, it gives us a direct connection to the spiritual hierarchy that Hashem has put in place, which is unique to mankind. The rest of Hashem's creations don't have this connection. And even though every action is taken into account, as the Ramchal describes early in the Sefer, but it's a much more indirect route. Whereas mankind, that we possess this neshama, this second tier nefesh, we have a direct connection to the spiritual realm. But mitzius hazeh nimshach hashefa anishba ala adam. It's through this existence that the shefa, Hashem's, the divine flow, if you will, the let's see how they translate that here. Influence. The influences are transmitted down to man. Minamakoros elyonim, from these loftier sources. Mimenu benefesh shizocharnu. Then they work their way down to the lower level nefesh. Umimenu baguf. And then from that to the body, to the physical body. So within every person, there are three levels. There's the physical body, And then we have the first level nefesh, which is the life source, the animal soul. And then we have the higher level nefesh, the neshama, and it works both ways. That higher level nefesh, it connects us to the spiritual realm in that it allows our actions to have a direct effect in the spiritual realm. It also connects us that we become recipients. It's like our cable, it's our internet cable that connects us to that flow of energy, that spiritual hierarchy, and then it connects to us from that point, and then it's passed from that high nefesh to the lower nefesh, then from the lower nefesh to the guf. V'nefesh ha'elyona manheges es hatachtona. The higher nefesh is what controls the lower one, and it influences it in whatever ways are necessary. At all times, at the different times of man, according to the relationship that is established, and the connection that is there, im ha'olyonim, with the higher powers. So this is a very interesting line. I don't know what to make of this. The nefesh, this higher nefesh, is connected to the lower nefesh, and the lower nefesh, b'chelik hayoser dak shebedam. It's connected to the element, the more subtle element of the blood. It sounds like the Ramchal's understanding that the connection point within the physical body between the nefesh, meaning the lower nefesh, the life force, if you will, and the physical body is somewhere in the blood. I don't know if our...
Can I ask a question? Does that sound like kidam hu hanefesh? Like if a
Yes, that was exactly the pasuk that I was going to bring up. Kidamu hanefesh. The Torah describes the blood as the life source, as the life force, the nefesh, and I think that's 100% where the Ramchal is coming from.
And if a person passes away, we're very careful to conserve all the blood, to bury it with them. I had a patient in the hospital once that happened, and they had an IV line, and I was told to put all that together with the person.
Wow, yes. So I think that this Ramchal, this one line in the Ramchal, is giving lending a lot more depth to that pasuk that you're citing, Ms. Platzker, and those halachos. I think we can understand on a much deeper level. I don't think that this was the intention of the Ramchal, but I think we see tangentially the way he's understanding things, that it's much more than just a simple idea that like you need blood to live, and if a person doesn't have blood, he won't live. Go ahead, Dr. Horowitz. Yeah.
Well, Dahu Nefesh applies. In fact, the pasuk, if I remember right, applies to the animals. We shouldn't eat blood with them because you're somehow imbibing the life force. And the problem with the life force is somehow the blood is good. This life force grabs sins and you splash it against the mizbeach, which is like the ground or something, and it can dissipate chataim or something.
Right. Exactly.
Somehow this blood life force is able to absorb sins. But I think we're getting way out of, first of all, way out of what I understand, and way out of what the Ramchal seems to be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'm with you on both points. That the conversation is going beyond to what the Ramchal is getting at, and also I'm feeling a little bit out of my league in terms of a complete understanding of these concepts. But I do think we're all hitting on the same point, which I think we do see in the words of the Ramchal, and I think it's a powerful and true point, that we're getting a little bit of a better sense of these psukim and these halachos, that it's more than a simple sense of blood. You need blood to live, and that like it seems that it's a very critical element in the being able to be alive. I think it's much more than that. We see in the Ramchal that the blood is the part of the physical body where this nefesh, this animal soul, which the entire animal kingdom possesses, which is both the life source, but it's also responsible for certain elements of drive and intellect and feelings.
Well, more basic than that is both nefesh and neshama refer to breathing, and it's the blood that's carrying the oxygen, and particularly the red part of the blood.
That is very interesting. That I haven't.
That's the simplest level of understanding it.
That's very fascinating. That needs much greater, analysis. Let me just repeat what Dr. Hertz was sharing with everyone and flesh it out a little bit more. What Dr. Hertz is pointing out is that we find in Psukim, many Psukim, there's a correlation between nefesh and breath, breathing in. Hashem blew the soul into Adam. And in terms of within the human body, the lungs may be what draws oxygen into the body, but what carries the oxygen through the body is the blood. The red blood cells in particular are what are responsible for providing oxygen to the body. So that's another place where we're seeing in the science of it, in the anatomy, the physical anatomy, a correlation between the blood and the soul. Fascinating. That's fascinating. Wow. Okay. And just completing the thought, another thought that Dr. Hertz was mentioning earlier, that it's not only that we are forbidden from eating the blood, and the Torah says because that's consuming the life force, the nefesh, but that's also the atonement through sacrifice is very much focused on blood. And I think it makes a lot of sense, especially if we follow the idea of the Ramban, that the animal's taking the place of the person. The significant part of a sin is the drive, the desires that took over. And I think that's the nefesh, meaning the lower nefesh, the animal soul, kind of overpowering the more higher spiritual soul. So it makes a lot of sense that the blood, which is the connection point for the animal soul, is what's used for atonement. That's fascinating. Okay, but jumping back into Ramchal. So the Ramchal is describing that there are three layers in a person. The highest is the spiritual soul, the nefesh ha'elyon, the neshama. Then there's the lower nefesh, which he calls the nefesh ha'tachtona. And then that connects to the guf, the physical body, specifically through the blood. V'nimsu haguf u'shtei ha'neshamos meskashim zeh im zeh. So the Ramchal concludes this paragraph by saying that what results is that the body and both of these two souls, they're all connected one to the other. Okay, let's continue now with number 3. V'hinei, behold, mitnei ha'kesher hazeh, because of this connection, sheniksheres nefesh zos baguf al yedei hanefesh hatachtona, that this higher nefesh, the spiritual soul, the neshama, is connected to the body through the nefesh hatachtona, through the lower nefesh. Nimtz es mugbeles bigvulos pratiyim. That creates limitations, boundaries. Our spiritual soul is limited by specific boundaries. V'nimna mimena hishtatvus va'esek imanimtsoim haruchaniyim v'nivdala. it is withheld, it's stopped from joining and from participating with purely spiritual entities. Kozman heyosa miskasheres maguf, so long as it is bound to the body. In other words, so long as the person is alive. So now we're getting a better sense of some ideas that we've encountered in other places. The Ramchal is telling us that the spiritual soul is in a certain sense tied down. It's not able to kind of roam freely amongst the spiritual realm and interact with other spiritual bodies as it could if it wasn't tied down to a guf, but it is. Hashem gives us each a nefesh and neshama, a soul, the higher level one, and it's tied to our physical body through this middle nefesh, this nefesh hatachtona, the lower soul. And because it's tied to a physical body, it's not able to have that full spiritual experience. But again, that's only so long as the person is alive, because that connection only lasts so long as the person is living. So now he gives a little bit more of a definition to what he's talking about. It is affected, it's influenced by the actions of that physical body. Those physical actions can cause it to become more connected through those actions to the light of Hashem, Hashem's divine light. And this is what we learned about previously, that through Torah and mitzvos, that is what we're able to accomplish. We are able to reveal a greater degree of Hashem's divine light. Oh, lintos mimenu, or we could remove it away from that, chas v'shalom, l'david b'kochos atuma, and to connect it to elements of impurity. And that, of course, would be through sin. So not only is our neshama, our higher spiritual soul, tied down, that it can't go and interact with spiritual beings as it would if it was set free, as when it's set free. But not only that, in addition to that, it's constantly affected by this unworthy partner called the physical body that it's tied to through this middle nefesh, the lower soul. And as a result, all of the actions of that physical body have an effect. They can have a positive effect and reveal greater divine light, or they could have a negative effect and give greater connection or dominion to the kochas atuma, to the powers of impurity. Ubezet talui hikonen al shleimus hamutad o hisracha kamimenu. This is, it's upon this that our preparation for perfection, ultimate perfection in the end of days, or being distanced from that, this is what it depends on. It all depends on this effect that our actions will have on our soul, and the degree to which we reveal Hashem's divine light. That's the degree to which we achieve perfection, which we will come to see in the end of days. It influences the person and it controls the lower nefesh, and it leads it, it guides it. And it engraves in it the images of the intellect according to its preparation, and initiates thoughts and desires according to the directions towards which the divine soul inclines. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 1 second. So which one's controlling which? That's the question I'm getting. That's troubling me about this paragraph of the Ramchal. Is it the goof that's having an influence on the soul, or is it the spiritual soul, or is it this higher spiritual soul which is having an influence on the goof? Sounds like it works both ways.
I think it has to work both ways.
Meaning if they're connected, it doesn't make sense that it could be, meaning if they're connected, it should have to be a two-way street. Is that what you mean?
Nothing's ever two ways. I've learned that the hard way.
That's interesting.
I mean, unless there's like such a balance in regards to the concept that you're talking about, yeah, possibly. But, you know, like in life, it seems like there's a lot of one-way streets and how things apply. I mean, look at the human, you know, you're talking about the animal soul. It's pretty one way going with humans. We dominate the earth. There is no other animal. There is no two-way street with that. It's one way, our way or the highway. You don't see a group of elephants or chimpanzees coming up out of the woods going, "Hey guys, y'all can't log over here. This is where we live at it." No, it don't work like that. So
Yeah. So I think the answer, so just in response to what you're raising, I think, you know, human versus, meaning man versus HaShem is, you know, in HaShem's world, everything is balanced. In man's world, most things are unbalanced. I think that's what you're pointing out. But I think what we're getting at here is that we're talking about a relationship, meaning a connection, a kind of almost a seesaw connection that exists between the higher elements of man and the lower elements of man. And they both have an influence on each other. The spiritual can affect the physical, and the physical can affect the spiritual. And they're intertwined in a way that they're constantly having an influence on each other.
Well, it's more than that you can't accomplish the spiritual in this world without having the physical to go along with it. If you have a desire, let's say, to do mitzvahs, you can't do it without your body, which is the whole idea of the body.
I see. So meaning you're saying that it's not only...
You need something to carry out the spiritual in this world. This world requires a seal, it requires action. And you need the body to do the action that the spirit is driving it. The same with the animals. They may have their drives and instincts, but they're, you know, if the birds want to fly, have an instinct to fly south for the winter, then they're going to have a body to do it with.
Fascinating. Okay, so now you're raising a different point.
Reciprocal, it's like you have you have different parts to the machine. And then
right.
And the soul level also, there is a certain amount of feedback, but so that way it's a two-way street. That you have to have some feedback. If your actions, I know we're getting out of the realm of this, and I'd have to think through how I'd say this, but you can't have actions. You can't have the soul accomplishing anything without the body to do it for it. And the body isn't going to do anything unless the nefesh is going to have some sort of desire to do it.
Right. I see what you're saying. So there's a two-way street, not just in the influence that one has on the other, but in their ability to function, that there needs to be a physical body to do mitzvos for the soul to have any, you know, for the soul's whatever, I don't know what the right word is, wills or whatever you want to call it, to have any manifestation. I see what you're saying. Okay, fascinating. Okay, let's go a little bit further, and then we'll hold it at this point for tonight. We're up to Daled now, which is page 186 in the Hebrew in the Feldheim translation, 187 in the English. Ve'amnam aval pishe karanua al derech klal nefesh achas. Even though in general it's referred to as only one nefesh, in reality and truth, there really are many different parts and different levels. It's really possible to say that there are many souls that are connected one to another like the chains, like the links of a chain. So it sounds to me from that metaphor that the Ramchal is expanding that it's not even two, it's more than two. There are multiple different nefashos. Just as all the links form the chain, so too all of these different levels of the soul, they build together the totality of this nefesh elyon that we've mentioned. The kulam kshura zu bezu, they're all connected one to the other. V'achrona, the last link in the chain, b'nefesh hatachtona, is connected to the nefesh hatachtona. V'atachtona b'dam, and the bottom, the tachtona, is connected to the blood, as we've mentioned. Okay, so it sounds like he's not negating what he said before about two. There really are two. There's a nefesh elyon and a nefesh tachtona, but now he's broadening the nefesh elyon. I'm not sure I understand why he's doing this, but he's broadening that the nefesh elyon itself has multiple levels, and many. It could really be divided up into many different nefashos itself, and he uses this metaphor of a chain with links. So it seems like within the person you have, on the very top, there's a chain with links that, link it all the way down, and the bottom link is that nefesh, tachtona, that lower level soul, the animal soul, the life force, if you will, and then connected to that is the physical body, specifically through the contact point of the blood. That is the structure of man, the structure of man that the Ramchal is describing. And this is what we've all got. And this is what makes us unique in the animal kingdom. And these are these components all work together. And that is how we are able to live a physical life with a spiritual connection, with a connection to the spiritual realm as well. Okay, so we'll hold it here for tonight. I want to thank you all for